Which one is better and why is it American Dad? Welcome to Shan Subs, my podcast Shan Subs. But then again, my podcast isn't called Shan Subs. Or my podcast title is Talk About Shows and Movies with Me. So, yes. Yeah. I should be more media trained. That's the thing. I should be more media trained and I should say, what's it called? And I should say, yeah, be more media trained, say, oh yeah, this is what we're talking about today. Oh yeah, this is a thing. But I never do that. I think I never want to do that also, as in to be media trained. But then I think being media trained though is always in the back of your head though, actually, aside from like what we're going to be talking about. But I think aside from what we're going to be talking about, it's like, yeah, being media trained is just something that comes with being on social media. It's something you learn very quickly because obviously you see how things happen and it's like yeah, so you see how things happen and you kind of just get things in your head that you obviously have to be media trained. But anyway, we're going to be discussing American Dad versus Family Guy. Don't ask me why. It's just actually, there is context actually. We're going to be discussing this because I'm going to be writing a article soon about comedy and adult animation. I'm looking at it right now, but I didn't write anything in it yet. But yeah, that's soon coming. I'm going to be talking about comedy and adult animation and how I think like comedy and adult animation has evolved, how it's changed through the years, and how like Family Guy used to be our number one is what we thought adult animation was. Or it took the prize for being number one, but in fact it's not actually number one. American Dad is. And I think I hold a bit of bias with this though, to be honest. Even while talking about this, I'm like, I hold a bit of bias with this because I've obviously started to watch American Dad again recently. And I'm like to myself, because I'm like watching it again, it's like, it's definitely valid that I think American Dad is better. And then I'm like to myself, I'm watching both of them right now, actually, to be quite honest. I'm watching American Dad and I'm also watching Family Guy, but I guess I'm watching American Dad more than Family Guy. Like, I think I'm getting into the rhythm of, like, where you can binge something. That's where I am. I'm at the point where I can feel like I can binge American Dad. It's the type of thing where if you put it on American Dad, you might binge it the whole entire night. And that's what TV is supposed to be, right? Like, TV used to be that a long time ago. Can't lie. It used to be that very, very long time ago where it felt like you could watch a show and obviously you could just let it run for the whole entire time, but you can't do that anymore. People will now sometimes obviously use television programs as background music. Like, do you see what I'm saying? People will use television programs as background music. And it's like, for me, with American Dad, it's not something I would use a television as background music ever. Because whenever I'm watching it, whenever I'm maybe even doing something, if I'm multitasking, I still get engrossed with American Dad being on there at the same time. It's the kind of thing where yeah, it was the kind of thing where I just have to watch it, and it's like, I guess with Family Guy, actually, if we're gonna come now, since we're comparing the two, with Family Guy, it's like I would leave it. Like, well, with Family Guy, I would use that as background music more so than using American Dad as background music. Like, I don't know. And then I also think like, I guess both of the shows have in common that their animation style changed over the years. Where I'm watching Family Guy now, I think I'm at like season one, where obviously the animation of Family Guy was so, so bad then. Like, wow, like it's surprising how bad it used to be. But and then obviously it got clearer. And I feel like obviously American Dad's animation also evolved, but I think also less so because I think it's probably like you probably say to yourself which one's been running for the longest, and I think it has been Family Guy. But actually, just for just for reference, we're gonna actually check which one started first. Because I think that's really important. And I think to myself, whenever I'm doing these, I'm like, you want to make sure you're fact checking. Wow. It says 1999 to 2025. So you guys are saying that Family Guy is still on? But no, like, I mean, I think okay, I watched yesterday. I watched the episode. I watched the Halloween special, right? I watched the Halloween special which was about pumpkins. Yeah, so okay, which I mean Halloween obviously revolves around pumpkins. But yeah, it was like obviously Peter was in some um he was in some pumpkin contest, right? And even with that episode, like, it was alright. I mean, okay, see, okay, American Dad started airing in 2005, so 1999 versus 2005, right? So obviously two different time eras, 100%. Two different time eras and two different, you know, quality of TV. Because that's what I'm saying. Because I'm saying with the fact that like, yeah, I'm saying with the fact that like Family Guy, like, has a longer, it has a longer like. I wouldn't say shelf life because that's the wrong phrase. I mean as though because Family Guy has been running for so long as it has. I just mean it's the legend, right? That's what I'm trying to say. When you weigh both shows up, you say to yourself which one's the legend and which one came after, right? So Family Guy was the root, it was the seed, and then American Dad was like from the leaves on the tree. But like, well, you could even say American Dad was the tree. But then I'm saying because American Dad came in 2005, that like, you know, what's it called? That yeah, that I just mean that Family Guy paved the way, right? Family Guy paved the way, and like obviously both shows, yes, both shows are by Seth, right? And it's like they are both him either way. Both shows have both shows have his stamp on them, and it's like, oh, what does he even say on here? American Dad actually gives itself the advantage by sticking to tradition, and in what may be a supposed upset to some, gets the point for humorous style. Which I hear. I think if you weigh up, like, yeah, what the shows are about, or how Family Guy and American Dad both have one thing in common, that they both obviously zoom in on one guy, sorry. Like how you have Stan, sorry. You have Stan Smith and you have Peter Griffin. So two guys at the forefront of these shows. And then I guess if you talk about the plots and you say Family Guy is to do with Peter being Peter being a family guy, sorry. Just being like, you know, this dad of the house guy, you know, like that's basically the plot. And then obviously Stan in American Dad, he's your average American guy, like, you know. And he just gives that. He just gives average American guy. Like obviously he works in the CIA. He's a spy. He's got like yeah, like I was gonna say he has a normal family. He doesn't. He doesn't have a normal family. Sorry, I mean, like, yeah. I think that's the point of American Dad. I mean, it's supposed to look like he has an average family, but you know, he's harboring an alien. So if we say his family is normal, that would be crazy because it isn't. No average guy just has an alien in his attic, and an alien who cross dresses. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, yeah, Roger cross dresses, okay? And I've always said that, like, a thing for me that I've always felt like is really interesting is because Roger and Steve always, Roger and Stewie, sorry, they always feel like similar to me. Like, that's what it always feels like to me. That they always just feel similar in the way they both are. And I've always thought to myself, oh, if there was ever a crossover, Stewie and Roger would be like friends. But I think they've always said, actually, if there was a crossover, then it wouldn't really work. Okay, the series focuses on the eccentric upper middle class Smith family in a fictionalized version of Langley, Virginia, and their false housemates, father, husband, CIA agent, Republican. I love the listing in this. And this is Wikipedia, by the way, guys. Breadwinner Stan, his wife and homemaker housewife Francine, their liberal hippie college aid daughters Haley, valid, and their dorky high school age son Steve. There are 4 additional main characters, including Haley's dim-witted boyfriend Jeff Fisher, right? The family's unusual goldfish Klaus. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing, actually. I didn't mention Klaus because, I mean, he's very underrated. I meant in that house, but I didn't mention him because also they have a weird goldfish, right? They have a weird goldfish, and that's not normal either. And then it says, okay, Roger the alien, who is a flamboyant, hedonistic, self-serving master of disguise. Like, right. It's just like, that's so crazy. But anyways, I think like weighing up both shows, I'm just like, I think I was writing it down the other day because obviously I'm trying to make notes for when I write the article up. I mean, the article doesn't zoom in on just like this one, like this podcast episode. It doesn't just zoom in on that, which is American Dad versus Family Guy. My article is going to be speaking about everything. My article is going to be speaking about like all comedy animation shows, actually. So like Family Guy and American Dad, but South Park also, and the Cleveland Show. We can talk about the Cleveland Show for just a second now, but I've always thought of the Cleveland Show, like, it's a funny show. That's cool, but then you think with the Cleveland Show, you just think, like, because it's just a fat black guy with a funny mustache, sometimes it feels a bit too on the nose, a bit too easy. That's what I will say. Because obviously, that's an easy angle to go for. I really love the Cleveland Show intro, though. I will say that. I really love that intro because it's so groovy, and I don't know. I wouldn't say it's better than any of the other intros. I meant like Family Guy and American Dad. I mean, they're all great, actually. I'll just say that. All two of the other shows, those intros are very good as well. So, yeah. I have never watched like an episode so funny. Like, obviously, no, I'm watching this episode right now, but this episode is so funny. The family episode. It's called "He's Too Sexy for His Fat," which is season 2, episode 17. I think earlier before when I was talking about it, did I say I was on season 1? No, I meant 2. I think obviously, yeah, seeing as I've been watching both shows at the same exact time, I think probably that's why I said season 1, but I meant to say 2. And then, yeah, this episode is so funny. I've been laughing so much. It's crazy. It's just like, I don't even know. I'm going to say more, like, obviously, I think when I finish the episode, I'll say more. Yeah, so in the end, obviously, Lois turns to Peter and says, "Did you learn anything, Peter?" And he says, "No." I was like, that is so funny. Like, how could he, like, as in not learn anything? Yeah, he didn't learn anything. And then, like, obviously, I mean, he says sorry, and he says sorry to Chris, and he says sorry to the family. And I just think, I don't know, like, I think in a way, now that I've finished watching that episode, that is what, like, the standout thing to me is in terms of Family Guy versus American Dad. I mean, of course, like, they are both, like, they're both flawed characters, flawed dads. Like, Stan's not even any better. Like, if we're honest, Stan's not a better dad than, like, Peter, but they're both not that great, to be honest. Yeah. Also, I'm gonna go through some of my notes, okay? So, yeah, like, obviously Family Guy is, like, more so about family, and then but more like both of the shows share that family ideal as, like, the family theme is the headliner. Like, even though Family Guy is called Family Guy, it's like American Dad also centers family as well, because obviously it's like American Dad, like, he's just your average American father, if that makes sense. um Oh yeah, and I thought that this episode was just, like, really funny because it was like they were all experiencing, like, the fat thing, apart from obviously Lois, Meg, and, like, Brian, but all other three of them were, like, affected by, just in terms of just, yeah, weight. And then I thought this episode really reflected on society and appearances, and how how you obviously shouldn't read into too much about how you look. Sorry, basically. I mean, Chris was obviously, like, he just felt really fat, and then in the end of it he's fine, like, in the end of it he's okay with who he is. And then it's really, like, it's Peter who really was affected the most. Like, that's what's funny. Like, the episodes, Peter encourages Chris to have liposuction, but in the end, Peter's the person who ends up having liposuction. He ends up having the liposuction, and then also Stewie's also the one that gets fat, rather than, like, Chris is the one who's working on his weight the most. That's the funniest thing. We said not even for the person who it was for. It didn't, it didn't. It was not even, like, to do with that. Okay. I also think that, like, I think in terms of choosing one or the other, I'm also just thinking, like, Family Guy is like a show, like I said, I think I said earlier, like, it's a Family Guy that, like, you grew up on, basically. And I remember I grew up on Family Guy when I was younger, because, yeah, I think I mentioned this, that Family Guy used to be on BBC Three, and it would be on, like, all the time, every night. And, like, they still have Family Guy on, what's it? Reruns? Do they call it reruns? Yeah, maybe it's reruns. Yeah. Excuse me, they still have reruns of, like, Family Guy now, even, innit? Because they have that on ITV2. Yeah, ITV2. That's what they do it now. But obviously, it was different. It was different way before, when it was on BBC Three, and you just have them every night. And I remember, I remember that my family, like, some of them, I think at my nan's house, there would be, like, collections of Family Guy, and I think we had so many seasons of that, of obviously of Family Guy. So it's like, in a way, it's like, you want to say, I sometimes think when you put two things together versus each other, you think about the nostalgia of them, and you think about, like obviously how you've stuck with them, basically. Because obviously it's like, for me, I would probably say, like, oh, which one would I choose? But would it be Family Guy? Yes, because it's like every time you hear the Family Guy intro, yeah, something nostalgic opens up in you, right? And it's like when you hear the American Dad one, sure, that's also slightly nostalgic, but it's not that nostalgic. Not for me, anyway. Just because, as I said, it's like growing up in Family Guy. It's like when I hear Family Guy, I'm like, that's my show. And, well, it used to be, anyways. And I think, obviously, oh yeah, I was going to talk about their comedy subject matters, and how what's it called? All of like comedy shows all have this one thing in common, where it's not like anything is out of bounds for them. Because even when I watched an American Dad episode before I watched the He's Too Sexy for His Fat one, and obviously it's like I weighed them both up against each other, and obviously it was like I realized that all comedies basically have this theme of how no joke is out of bounds, and they will always make a joke no matter what it is, and that it's like, even if it's controversial, they'll do it anyway. And I think to myself, it's like, even when those type of comedy shows come out of controversial stuff, they never get in trouble, kind of thing. They never really get in trouble for any of the jokes they've made, because it's something I've always thought about, like South Park and stuff. I've always thought, how does South Park really like manage to get away with the jokes that they're able to make? And the fact that, like, yeah, like, for me, I think people would agree that when I think of South Park, I think of the fact that, like, most of their niche of jokes is like racism. Yeah, like most of their jokes on the show, or like the theme is racism, because there's even how in South Park, of course, they have the character Token, right? And they obviously call him Token because he's the only black kid on South Park, and there's not really any other black characters. You know, there's just mainly the white ones, and they all have, like, what's it called, different races, of course. I mean, apart from, no, I think the only one in their group who is like is the fact that what's his name, Cartman, Kenny, Stan. Let's search up the names, because my mind's going blank, right? So I was like, I was naming the characters and I forgot what they were called. How crazy? Yes, that Star started in 1997. But yeah, okay, see, I knew it. So Cartman, Kyle, Stan, Kenny. Yeah. So it's like how out within their group, right? It's like Kyle is the only one who's like, what is he? Did they say he's a Jew? Yeah, he's like a Jew, and the rest of them are all just like, basically, they're just like American. They don't really have much ties to anything, I don't think, in terms of like religion and that. I think that's how it is, but it's just like, even with like stuff like that, I mean, that they cross the line. They are able to cross the line with that, I mean. So yeah, I mean, why do they say it's an utterly unique institution? And of course, wow, when you say explore more, yeah, even some of the ones I've spoken about just now, obviously it says explore more, and then there's Family Guy, American Dad. There's also The Simpsons. If we talk about Simpsons for a minute, because, you know, even though this is American Dad versus Family Guy, it's just like, I was needing to do this episode in terms of like, helping me to write my article, basically. But also, yeah, so on top of that, if you say like Simpsons, they always say Simpsons has the ability to predict real life situations. They would say that about Simpsons, which is factual, because I think we've all seen that. And then you've also got like Futurama as well. I'm such a big fan of Futurama. Futurama is so funny as well, and that's like, even if we're gonna say like to put Futurama in the equation of Futurama versus Family Guy versus American Dad, then we'd say Futurama is the standout though. I mean, when did even Futurama come out? See, 1999. That's when the Futurama came out, and it's been around for ages. I remember when I first started watching Futurama, yeah, I was really young. And then Futurama's even come back now, and I watched its recent season, and it's still funny. Like, that's crazy. That's what I mean. Like, Futurama has not even, like, I always think sometimes that, like, when you watch shows, they probably sometimes like lose their pizzazz. I always sometimes think that they lose their pizzazz, but with Futurama, that's just really not the case at all. Like, it's not the case at all. Like, Futurama really is like good. Like, I think there was a recent episode of where like where it was so funny, where Futurama was like, obviously they successfully broke the fourth wall, and I was like, I love it when shows do that. Like, it's like me thinking about Fleabag, for instance, and it's like just shows that break fourth walls. You're just like, okay, like it's like you actually know that we're here. Like, that's just really interesting. I think that even happened on an episode, yes, of American Dad. I think I was gonna mention that. That happened on an episode of American Dad where it was the episode about Stan finding out about Haley and his boss sleeping together, and then obviously Klaus the fish, he voiceovers the whole episode or half of it while they're fighting, and it's like, obviously that's successfully breaking the fourth wall, because that's obviously speaking to the audience. Like, you know, it's not a thing that all shows do. Like, it's not like all shows do, which is speak to the audience, but like, obviously that is successfully doing it, basically. And it's even like, I guess you could also mention shows like The Office, shows that, like, obviously, yes, you feel like they're speaking to you because of the way that it's filmed, and also like Abbott Elementary. That's also another one that you could say is a show that feels like, you know, feels like you're there, and it feels like they're talking to you. And I love it when shows, yes, are filmed like that. Do you know what I mean? They speak to the camera like they're speaking to you, but it's like they're also speaking to the cameraman, obviously. Do you know what I mean? But it feels like it's a subtle fourth wall break. Like, very subtle. But it's an interesting discussion. Like, I just think to myself, yeah, like, this type of discussion, though, this is just me having it with you guys, but like, I'm just like, it would be a discussion that would have to be had with others, because all of us have our preferences in life, and we all like will say, oh, this one's my favorite, or this one's my favorite. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's why it's just like, I wanted to talk about them both as shows, but I just think to myself, it's also not really basically a contest. It's more so a discussion. Like, it's a discussion, but it's not like a debate or that kind of thing. Because I think, of course, I'm trying to say, like, if it was a debate, it's a thing where you would open it up with others, and you would have an open discussion about it. And, you know, when you have discussions like that, everyone's going to have a different opinion, basically. Do you know what I mean? Which is very interesting. I think that's what's also interesting about having discussions like this. And I think it's something, even though I've done this episode today, it's not a thing that I'm not going to discuss again, because yes, as I said, I would want to discuss it with others and see what their favorite comedy shows are, because there's obviously just so many. There's just so many comedy shows, and there's so many like good ones. Even Archer as well. Archer's a great show. It just came up on my thing, but no, like, Archer's also another one of those shows. Archer started in 2009. I don't think obviously I didn't watch it then, but like, I'm not really sure when I started Archer, but I started it like probably when I was in, I feel like I want to say in college, or like a few years ago, though. I mean, it's finished now, though. Like, it's actually reached its moment where it's finished, where it's finished. Thing, like, Archer is finished, but like, you could obviously rewatch Archer again. I think to myself, you could rewatch. Yeah, like, of course, I just mean with comedy shows, like, it's good to rewatch them, or basically what I feel like I'm doing with Family Guy with American Dad, which is just like going through all of the seasons, and it's like it's it's not going to be a quick thing, but it's a thing that I will do. And will finish eventually, even though they have so many seasons. I think even like, because Archer has 14. I've watched all of them, but you know, I mean, it's not even a thing where obviously I've not binged them all in one go, because yeah, you can't watch. I don't really feel like, I don't know if people can do that. You know, I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to say that. I'm just speaking for myself here. I don't really feel like I can really do that. To go ahead and really binge watch 14 seasons, basically. I don't really know if that's really possible. I'm not too sure. Obviously, I know I've done it. Yeah, I've done it over a time. So it's like, obviously, it's over a time, and I finished Archer, basically. But like, it was a good show. Like, as in, it was easy to able to watch it. I mean, because it was such a good show that you could continue to watch it all the time. And when it had its recent season, I was so on it, and I finished that quickly. Finished that really, really quickly. But like, that's what I'm trying to say. I just think, like, in terms of just comedy, like as a genre, I think that there's right ways, to do comedy, basically. Yeah, there's right ways and there's wrong ways. I just think, like, because, you know, even when I think about South Park and I think about the fact that, sure, they for me are one of the most ones that make the most, like, what do you say? I was going to say dark jokes. Yeah, but they're the ones, yes, that go out of the bounds. But for me, I was thinking about how, like, when they did Mickey Mouse, that was so funny. Like, it's not like you've ever really seen Mickey Mouse in anything apart from the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, but to see him in South Park, and to be taken the piss out of. But basically, no, Mickey Mouse was actually a villain in that show. But like, to see him that way was super, super funny. And it's like, of course, that's just what comedy is. Like, I think comedy is testing the waters, going outside of the box. And I think if it works, it works. Like, you know, and it's just like, even with comedy, you think it's not even you're always going to laugh at something. I mean, I didn't even think the episode of Family Guy, the one obviously I said with Peter and Chris feeling insecure on his body, I never thought it was even really be that funny. But but it was, you know why it also made me laugh? Like, Stewie was being Stewie as usual, and that was making me laugh. Like, it's like how I feel about Stewie, I feel about Roger and Cartman, and like so many iconic characters like him. Like, it was like Stewie was like, darn you, how dare you disobey me? And you know when Stewie always had that iconic line, which was, is it Cool Whip? And then like, people would discuss that and they'd say, how would you say that the right way? But it's not even, it's like, he just says it a funny way because he speaks funny. Like, and I just think also what is so good about Family Guy and American Dad shows is, obviously, as I said, that they're obviously both made by Seth, but he's able to do so many different impressions in two separate shows, and then he has so many different characters on his waistband. It's similar with, like, I think, like, how when Nick Kroll and he did Big Mouth, he did lots of the characters in Big Mouth, and it's like, obviously that was him doing so many different impressions for different characters. Like, he did like Lola, and he did he also do Nick? Yeah, I want to say that he also did Nick, and then he obviously also did Maury. Yeah, he also did Maury, and like, he just, see, do you know what I mean? He did Nick Birch. What's it called? And like, obviously, the Big Mouth cast, yeah, they just have loads of good people on their on their roll up, basically. Do you know what I mean? There's so many good people in this show, for instance, and like they're all just great voice actors, basically. I even thought, on top of that, I'm talking about voice acting, I always thought I wanted to be a voice actor, because I think how cool is it to be able to, yeah, use your voice for a character, and like a character that's not you, but you get to put on a funny voice, basically. Do you know what I mean? You get to be silly with something. You get to be silly with something, and you just get to, like, yeah, put on a funny voice and play a funny character. But I think, so obviously, like I said, no, okay, so but when you search up the Big Mouth cast, it doesn't really say that he really did as many characters as he did, but it's like he basically did at least, obviously, yeah, he did 3 characters. Yeah, he did 3, because obviously, no, I said he did Nick, he did Maury, and he also did Lola. So it's 3, like I said. But like, it's like, that's what's so interesting, I mean, in terms of being creators of comedy shows, and then also acting in that said comedy show, and playing multiple characters and not even just one. Like, it's just like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, that's why also, yeah, it's just, that's why it's hard when you're discussing comedy to really say which of these shows are better. It's a difficult conversation. But anyways, guys, I feel like I've yapped for long enough. It's like 36 minutes. So, and that's my usual time. Do you know what I mean? I like to always have a roundabout number and have a same figure for most of the episodes, because it's just better that way. I think to myself, there will be one of these days, though, when I will have a topic that I'll speak about for a whole hour. I'd like to challenge myself on that, though, because how interesting would that be? I don't know what that one would be, to talk about something for an hour, but, like, you never know. You can do it, basically. I think it's possible. Like, people usually are on podcast episodes for an hour, so that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's definitely possible. Anyway, so then to close, what do you feel? Oh yeah, which one do you feel is better out of those two? But aside from those two, what is a notable comedy show for you? And basically, that's what I'll leave you guys with. Because why not? It's a good way to close. So, see you, and hope to see you in the next one.